Alright, everyone, welcome back to episode 6 of our Tabletop Assault podcast. I'm your host, David, and we're joined today by Stuart and Ross.
Hey. Hello.
So, we want to be talking about key things such as our Psychic Awakening updates, what we think has actually been the most important so far and the best armies that have updated from it. What we think makes a top army, a top warlord, and do we think 40k should actually have a new addition, a new force? We'll find out on this episode today. So guys, again, we've all said our welcomes. Good old rules as always. Keep it friendly in the chat. If you do have any questions, put it in the chat and we will monitor it and answer it for you. Be friendly, be nice, and we'll get to your questions when we can. So, talking about our first topics of the day. Warhammer's 40k top armies. Probably one of the biggest things that's ever debated. You know, we've got Grey Knights with the new updates. Everyone talks about craft worlds and Tau and gunlines. But we want to start talking today about what we feel makes the top army and what we feel is the top army. Guys, just going around the table, do any of us feel that we play top armies or play sort of meta lists? What's your thoughts?
Well, so we're talking about army, we're not talking about HQ or anything. It's army in general, you saying?
Just the armies for now?
Just the armies. Really it's about sort of synergy. It's a tough one. I really can't answer that one. This edition's a bit different in that speed is more important than it's ever been in the past. You know, sort of how quick you can move. Armor saves are now a lot more redundant. It's a really tricky one in that one. This edition's really about sort of having as many almost special rules as you possibly can, and then how to combine them to absolutely obliterate opponents. I would say, who do I play as again? I don't say anyone I play as is. I don't play Space Marines, so there you go. I'm not playing uber competitive particularly. But there's a few fun tricks I do have.
Do you think Space Marines are uber competitive?
Oh yeah, they're sort of, they used to be the jack of all trades, masters of none. Then they got updated and then they became the jack of all trades and partly masters of them. So it became a real tricky situation. It's a bit of a difficult one. They just seem to have a bit of an answer for everything in some way. They've got great extra abilities. Not only do they get Legion abilities, they get an extra ability if they go mono as well. And they focus a lot on, you know, they've got a lot of rerolls to hit with rerolls to wound. And that's a very odd place that this edition's come to, is that you're almost getting rerolls upon rerolls upon rerolls. They've just got a lot more now, and then you can pick a legion. Some legions will be better versus horde armies, some will be better versus how can I put it, like heavier armored ones. If you've got an army that you can change the legion trait a lot, and you know what your opponent's going to play, you can really change your legion and badly affect your opponent. Maybe in tournaments where you're only allowed to choose your legion beforehand, there'll be opponents you'll struggle against. But if you're allowed to change your legion on the fly, then they have a little bit too much of everything, which makes them a bit tricky in my mind.
Fair point, fair point. Now, obviously, sure, I'll come to you in a moment, but obviously, you're kind of still finding your feet in Warhammer 40k. In particular, at the moment, you're using, you know, sort of core Space Marine armies. But we will come back to yourself in just a wee second. But I've got a quick question for Ross, kind of on that sort of subject. So, do you feel it's actually the Legion traits of an army that can make it sort of top army meta, and not the army itself that you've chosen?
Well, that's that. I feel that's probably one of the most fundamental parts that make an army good, is essentially a rule that is universal to the whole army. Makes a heck of a difference to their usage. So what Space Marines have on that one is that originally they weren't very good because their Legion rules were mediocre, and they show no fear. Both very, very poor. Now they've updated them to have much stronger Legion traits. Then they added, was a bolter drill and combat doctrines, and then if you go one Legion, you get another rule. The difference between them and 8th edition is massive. If you have a very poor set of Legion traits, which you see with the earlier codexes, it badly affects their competitiveness in the way the army uses. I say that plays a very, very heavy amount. The other part is just play style. Space Marines have a large unit roster, gives them a lot of variety to choose from, and their stratagems have been updated. And I'd say between Legion traits and stratagems, play a heavy, heavy part of it, and then unit choice. Those are probably three main things.
Okay, fair enough. Interesting. Well, we've got a quick question here that I'd like to kind of come onto, and it had to obviously be from Godbody Jutsu. And Ross, you're probably more of our resident Chaos player at the moment. What are some strats that can make World Eaters competitive?
When it comes to Chaos Space Marines, I think the first codexes that came out, which was Chaos Space Marines, Death Guard, and Grey Knights, all need to be updated. As many people might say, oh, but Chaos Space Marines got an updated codex. They basically got a Volume 2, which is just taking all the new units and putting it into the codex. Those codexes, because they were probably written before the edition really came out, before people... There is some real fundamental problems to the sort of codex in general. Ones that work with World Eaters, it's a tough one. I generally want to see them get their own codex. I think...
Agreed.
I think the popularity of Thousand Suns and Death Guards, people love the Doom Primarchs coming out, and it's been nearly, I want to say 2.5 years since the last one came out.
Really?
Maybe even 3 years, actually. Give me a second to calculate. Yeah, it's been about 3 years. No, 2.5.
You do know because you've said that I'm going to send you a gif of a guy going through the Matrix now.
I was thinking the buffering symbol.
It's been a while since there's been a Primarch, and maybe we need to see sort of the storyline evolve, and maybe they can add a bit more to it. I don't know, but when it comes to them becoming great, I think if we're gonna, this will conflict with Psychic Awakening, is that one of the strongest ones were the World Eaters and all the Chaos Space Marine Psychic Awakening. That was really good. They got great Warlord traits, great stratagems, great relics. So what do they need to be made great again? They need to have Khorne sort of troops, Khorne Terminators. What they did with Death Guard may have not made them great, but made them fun to play, which I think was really good.
Okay,
an extra
fair enough.
toughness and an extra wound, not gonna happen, I would say. When it comes to let's just say jutsu, say an extra toughness, extra wound. I would say, if anything, I would maybe give them a feel no pain roll, because of obviously, maybe if they kill something, they get feel no pain. It starts at 6. If that unit destroys unit, goes up to 5. If they destroy another unit, they go up to 4. That might be interesting. I wouldn't give them another wound. The only army of the only ones I would give another wound to, although I believe all Space Marines should actually be 2 wounds, but that's just my opinion.
No, I agree.
They're Space Marines. Is that Death Guard should get 2 wounds. They should be tougher. World Eater should do more in combat, and maybe if they kill more things, then they would at least get there.
Interesting. One of the questions was about strats. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but do you not think Vets Long War would be a really good sort of impact for Khorne Berserkers, especially when it comes to combat?
Of course. I mean, they've got a whole bunch of new ones in Psychic Awakening, which are really, really good as well. Veterans of the Long War is a staple in just about all of them. So what I'm saying is that if you play Chaos Space Marines, you probably know the go-to ones already. There's none. It's not the stratagems that are their weakness. Is that they've got Marines that are 1 wound. That's why we're seeing now Primaris begin to overtake regular Space Marines, because their points have came down. It's actually better than having a 5-up fuel.
Yep. Oh, we may have just lost Ross there. 2 seconds, guys. Ross, are you with us, or has your rant taken you away?
I think Ross is calculating more stuff right now.
yeah, I think his mic's just cut.
Can you hear me at all?
No, he's back!
Yeah, I can hear you.
Happy days.
There we go.
So what happened there?
So I don't want to go through the ones we currently got. Vets is fine. And I mean, when it comes to Chaos Space Marines in general, they need the Space Marine treatment, which is a big update. They were one of the first codexes. They need to be updated.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, thanks very much, Ross. And again, guys, keep your questions coming into the chat section down below. So I'm kind of going to go on just before Stuart does, if you don't mind, and explain, because Ross has obviously kind of explained there what he thinks sort of makes a top army. I actually think there is a top army at the moment. I know people in the chat, and especially watch your replay, will disagree. But for me, the top army is actually just Space Marines. It's quite simple. They, as Ross mentioned, have the jack of all trades. They can do combat, they can do shooting, they can do psychic, they can do whatever they want, and they can do it probably equally or better than anyone else. There's a few subtle exceptions to that rule, however, but they have an answer to everything. And I think one of the key things that really makes Space Marines so unique is they have so many Legion traits that you can't count them all on your two hands. So many different characters to choose from. They all do so many unique abilities. But their army has the right transports, the right flyers, the right troop choices, the right heavy hitters. It just has everything you can possibly want. And I guess that goes down to the codex itself. When you look at it, that codex is thick. And when it's thick, you know you've got something in there for everything. That is just my honest opinion. And I'm going to keep it short just by passing it on to Stuart. And do you agree?
Is there much point me saying anything? I'm pretty much like, I think we're all in agreement. Space Marines is pretty much the best army at the moment. Like, I mean, like you're saying, like how thick the book is, there's so much they can do. And I mean, the Chaos Space Marine book as well. I haven't seen it in a long time, and there is quite a big vary to them as well. I mean,
there is a vary, but I think Ross can testify it's maybe not as good as Space Marines.
Yeah, because I fought the Chaos Space Marines before now, and like they are getting new weaponry that's like it is quite intimidating. But yeah, it's like, I mean, I've just used Imperial Fists, and they are just disgusting right now, including with their supplement book that adds on a whole bunch of other stuff that they have. Yeah, you just can't. I disagree with it, in my opinion. It's just if somebody comes at you with Tau, and you go, I'm playing Space Marines, you go, well, I can make a list that's going to destroy your Tau any way I want to, because I've got so many more different types of units that the Tau or anybody else doesn't really have. They're just very so versatile. That's really it.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all there. I think they've got a track of all trades, everything everyone wants. We all love to hate Space Marines, but let's not kid ourselves. It's clearly the flagship army, and it can do whatever it wants. I think at the start of 8th edition, they never had the power they once did, but they now certainly do after Psychic Awakening. Really quickly, a wee add-on to that, Stuart. Would you be interested in Black Templars?
The Psychic Awakening, I'd seen some. I was a bit disappointed by it. It wasn't what I was expecting. I don't know why. I think I was just expecting a bit more interesting rules. I know they are mainly a melee focused army. When I used to play, like, what was it? You get especially when you to get a wound or whatever, you advance. That was like years ago when that rule was in place. I mean, I don't know. I just don't think the rules were that impressive in the new Psychic Awakening that was brought out for them.
There's something I would want to say in that one.
I go for it.
Yep. So when you say, Black Templars and everything, very much what I feel with Space Marines, how they've wanted to evolve them is very much like Primaris. They've been buffing their shooting capabilities and not focusing on their combat capabilities with Legion traits, stratagems, etc. And that's why we have next to no combat-centric Primaris. If you look at combat-centric armies such as Space Wolves, Blood Angels, and you could say Black Templars, there's no Primaris version of their best ones, which is a problem.
I mean, the Black Templar, yeah, because I remember me and you, Ross, were talking about that, is like, because the Black Templars, it's been mainly their like HQ choice and all that have been really having like the buff ups, that like the Emperor's Champion and stuff like this. And I mean, I haven't really heard anything, well, besides their, they're not conscripts. Why am I forgetting this now? I'm totally blanking on it. Just like the normal Space Marines for a Black Templar, there's not like a Primaris version of it. or at least like the old days where basically if you wanted to have the Black Templars version, you could buy a conversion kit for them. Like I don't know if Games Workshop actually have like conversion kits for Primaris to a Black Templar in that sense.
They did have them They did have additional ones for Imperial Fists, Salamanders, and things, but not for Black Templar, as far as I'm aware.
It just leads me to believe in that sense. It was like Black Templars are solely just meant to be original Space Marines only. They don't get like you could technically use the Primaris version, but it just from the Psychic Awakening stuff, I was like, oh, so are we just using normal Space Marines with the Black Templar? They don't get any Primaris units to be allowed to use in that sense.
The other part is that Black Templars are not like a first founding chapter. They're not Imperial Fists. They're not Salamanders.
Yeah.
Who are the first founding? And I think that they got a little, they're struggling to make Space Marines work as a combat army. So when they are purely combat centric and they're stuck with the original troops, they don't have, the Blood Angels, Sanguinary Guard, or Wolfen, which have their own rules that make them quite good. Black Templars really don't have that. They have scouts in troops, and they just don't gel well. And especially with the stratagems and things for Black Templars, it's I would say Black Templars are probably the weakest of all Marines.
So for anyone looking at an answer if Black Templars are top, the answer is no.
If you flip it, I'd probably argue that.
I was hoping you were going to turn around to go, they're actually the best, and here's why.
Here's my top 10 Black Templars.
Here.
Okay, nice. Okay, fair enough. And I think, truth be told there, guys, I think we all kind of see, I think we're in agreement, Space Marines probably have the best tricks of the trade to really make it work. So let us know in the chat, what your opinions are, if you think Space Marines are at the top, if they're not at the top. I know some players will probably say Craft Worlds. I was very tempted to say them, and I think they're probably number 2 for me, because they seem to be another army that has a trick up their sleeve for anything. But, sorry, did you say Admech? No?
No Admech.
No.
They've got no psychic abilities, and there's a lot of squishy units. There's a couple of tricks they can do.
Don't worry, Ross. I'm going to mute Stuart's mic for that comment, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay. So we're going to move on to our next topic, which is quite a similar theme, because we want to kind of talk about what the number one sort of armies are, or let's talk about what we think is the qualities needed in making a top warlord. Now, that's a very broad stroke topic there, because everyone has different play styles. So I think we're going to go by each individual person's playstyle. What you feel you want to see is the qualities. So I guess you're kind of looking for abilities, things that make your warlord that you like to take, what you think's number one. What's your top warlord? What do you look for in your top warlord? Take it away, Ross.
So what do I look like? This is a different. One thing I'd say in this one is, what do I look for personally? If I look for a warlord personally, I want them to be a badass, kill everything and move on. But in terms of the game, which this is what we're talking about, is synergy with your force. I don't really mind if, so the main qualities of a warlord is really, mobility. If you're going to go for one that's actually going to do combat, you've got to have mobility, being able to hit at high strength with good AP, good damage, and also lots of rerolls. So you obviously have your Smash Captain for that. Covers a lot of those bases there. And the main reason why Smash Captain works more than, say, a Baden or anything is because they have a jetpack, like a jump pack. That makes a huge difference for one that's combat orientated. Mobility in this game is highly, highly valued.
I think you're missing the key point, Ross, about the jetpack. Isn't mobility? It's just the coolest thing ever to say you have a jetpack. You're literally you're literally recreating your Buzz Lightyear on the tabletop.
I do love the model. I've made actually a cool Black Legion one I need to get painted up because obviously I think it was over a year ago, I got torn apart by Rich with a jump pack Chaos Lord with Black Legion relics, and it was awesome.
Oh, the Chain Lord.
Chain Lords, yeah, that one absolutely hurt. But when it comes to this game, it's all about, I feel, especially with Space Marines, it's all about overlapping special abilities. If you can reroll stuff, if you can negate people's abilities, etc., etc. So, when it comes down to, I'd probably say the best one has to be is special abilities that affect other units, and ideally as many other units around them as possible. And it's not so much survivability. Survivability is fine, But in this edition, it's all about how hard you can hit. So if you can reroll a million things, if you can cause all the units to do better around you, that's probably the best thing. So if you can, for instance, I think Space Marines now have, they can take, I don't know what exactly stratagem, or I think it's maybe a warlord trait or relic. You can basically make them like a chapter master, and then you can take a relic, I think, that allows reroll ones to wound. So you have one model that allows everything within 6 inches to like reroll all hits, and then you can also reroll ones to wound. And you stick all your heaviest units around them, have a very good screen so your opponent can't get it. If you get first turn, you just blow everything apart.
Yeah, that's quite scary.
Primaris, so Tenant, that they can reroll ones to wound as well. They can do that.
Yeah, but if you get it under one model, that allows you to reroll all hits and ones to wound. It's nuts. Which is another thing I'm having a bit of a problem after this Psychic Awakening, but I'll talk about that maybe another time.
Yeah, I know you've got a few issues there, so they definitely say that for another topic.
But yeah, that's what's making it, a really powerful one, is your synergy with your force rather than being an absolute beat stick in yourself. If you only move 5 or 6 inches, you're not going to get in combat.
Very true.
That is a problem. People are just going to outrun you. So if you just have to stand still and let other people do the job, and you make them do it better, what's not to love?
Thanks, Ross. So, Stuart, yourself, when you look for a warlord in your army, now that you're again still new to the hobby and you played a couple of games, you've had a good chance to actually use sort of support warlords who buff your army. You've also had a few chances to use warlords that hit very hard. What do you think you would like to see in a warlord? What would be the traits that stand out to you?
If it's me personally, ones that just make you keep re-rolling so you don't roll ones all the time.
Right.
Since I'm horrendous at doing that. So again, like Ross saying, the Space Marines, Prime Minister said, re-roll win rolls of 1. Your Chapter Master would re-roll your hit rolls of 1. I love those ones. Then 6 inches so you can buff your whole army. They're absolutely fantastic. I love the Necro, the Cryptic one. If you can within so many inches, I think it's 5. Is it 5 inches? You get +5 to the reanimation protocols. That I love survivability that keeps your forces in. Gives you higher chances of rolling high. Keeps your units.
So you're similar to Ross, and you don't really want a beat stick sort of commander. You're quite keen to have.
Yeah. And the old rules when I used to play them, having one specialized character running into the middle of the fight and taking out people was a legitimate strategy, and it worked. Now, because again you can reroll ones and all this crazy stuff with the rules now, doing that is just complete suicide. Hence why I hate that rule. If you're your Chapter Master or whatever's behind a unit, you can't aim at him. It's because they know if he's out in front, he's getting pelted quickly and just getting dead. Because that's how I kind of see most of these the HQ choices now that have been ran. They're all about buffing the other units. They're not there to go out and hit something big by itself. They've got to bring, if they're going to do that, they've got to bring a unit with them, and they'll buff that unit as well as themselves and do all the attacks at the same time. Unless you've got one-on-one captain versus captain or something like that, then it's legitimate if you're going to do that. But yeah, it's more. But I prefer more sort of. I'm more getting into going into melee, because Ross was saying it to me a few times. Try doing melee. It is a lot more fun to do it in Custodes, where the first one that Ross can introduce me to, of me running in just using Custodes, and they can wreck shop quickly. And it's a lot more fun. So Custodes are because they can again survivability and all that. So I would prefer to buff my units than my actual character. I would still like to have my character have a good couple of a relic, a good relic maybe that keep him alive, so he doesn't die too quickly or anything like that. But yeah, it would be mainly just keep my guys just re-rolling all my ones and just keeping them alive as much as possible.
Okay, fair point. And I think you're kind of in the same boat as Ross. You support character, keep your army ticking, have a unique function that's going to support either their attacks, their rolls, or their survivability. I'm going to just say straight away off the bat, I'm actually completely different from both of you. And I'm going to just be biased as always, and I think anyone who's been listening to our podcast we'll start to notice this biased theme throughout pretty much nearly almost every episode now. So what I look for in a Warlord is called Magnus.
Now, I actually, because I knew this topic was coming up, I spoke to Stuart earlier. Anyone who's targetable instantly got written off, in my view. I lost Magnus to one unit of long fangs, or maybe 2 units of long fangs to you, so no, but okay, keep going.
Thanks, Ross. So yeah,
I should have guessed it was going to be Magnus. I'm angry is why.
Well, let me explain then, guys.
Go for it.
Sit tight and enjoy. So when I look for a commander, first of all, I look for a backstory, and well, let's be honest. Let's be honest here. Magnus, he did nothing wrong.
You're really going to the beginning here, aren't you?
Yeah, he did nothing wrong. And those in the chat who want to post your hate, that's fine, but he did nothing wrong. So I look for
a lawyer.
Well, I'm his advocate. So I look for a character that's got a backstory, and oh boy, does Magnus have a backstory. Second, I look for the glorification of that model, which is Magnus. So if my Warlord doesn't look glorious on the tabletop, I don't care. And trust me, there's many a battle report I've done where I've had a Warlord and I don't care about him. Magnus, I care so dearly. So that's what I look for. Secondly, Magnus has his reroll abilities, which he has to affect the army, which is reroll hits. He also has reroll abilities for the psychic phase. And if anyone who knows me on the channel, there is only one phase in the whole of Warhammer 40k that I actually care about, and that's the psychic phase. So if I can find a Warlord that buffs the psychic phase and improves it for me, he's automatically going to fit my bill. But then again, he has the backstory of any Warlord that's currently in existence, which is Magnus, #did nothing wrong. So Magnus for me is number one. So to summarise, he needs to look great, he needs to have a great backstory, and he needs to impact the psychic phase. Now, I did mention before I gave you my opinion there, I'm completely biased. So by all means, tear this apart. This is by no means official or the right answer. It's just my answer. And I know I've probably annoyed Ross so much, but it's give me a Magnus.
Did you not even say like rules at all? You just went, if he looks good and he's got a cool story.
He did. He talked about aura abilities, which we talked about. So he's kind of in agreement with us. He just wanted someone who has more abilities.
Magnus has everything.
If he looks fancy and he has a cool backstory, I'll take him.
It's Magnus for me, guys. It's if I have a Warlord that doesn't fit those criteria, I'm so sorry. It's not going to fit the bill for me. However, though, just want to also mention we've also now got 2 skill for cool in the chat. You heard Custodes, you did hear Custodes, but guess what? I will not be indulging that conversation in Custodes. And no, just before you ask the question in the chat, I have no plan or ambition to play them anytime soon. I have ambitions to play against them, but not play as them. They're slowly becoming Ultramarines 2.0 for me, and that's saying something. So yeah, right guys, moving on. We've got some more topics that we do want to talk about. And I think Ross is probably going to be the key for this one, because if you've been following our videos on the Psychic Awakening, you've pretty much seen Ross has been kindly spending a lot of time and effort and actually taking those books that GW has kindly sent to us pre-release to break down, to analyse, to review, and Ross has probably built up a plethora of knowledge through all the different armies. So yeah, I'm going to lean on you first, Ross. Psychic Awakening, the stage we're at just now, we're probably just beyond the halfway point. Out of all the armies that's had an update, so not including the armies that are to have an update, but the ones that have had one, who do you think has benefited the most from the Psychic Awakening changes?
Okay. I was thinking about this because you did mention it earlier and you were like, have a good think about this. Who's benefited most? And I would argue to a degree that it's kind of between Astra Militarum, Tau, and Chaos Space Marines, with maybe Chaos Space Marines edging ahead. If they only got one thing, they would be a dead set winner.
Wow, I didn't see that that top 3. Didn't expect that. Okay.
Who did you expect me to say?
Well, I didn't expect Chaos. I don't know who I expected to say, but I didn't expect Chaos to be added in that edition. That
Oh,
clearly shows my ignorance. I've not really studied them yet.
So maybe I should justify in that one. Chaos, the problem is they got some of the best. So their main additions that they got between their legions was they got warlord traits, relics, and stratagems, I think. And their warlord traits, relics are phenomenal. Like some of them are straight up awesome. They really make quite good, demon princes, everything. Stratagems are not bad. The problem is that they didn't get if their legion traits are so bad, they are really, 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 really bad. If their legion traits were better, I'd argue they got some of the greatest additions. But some of their stratagems are absolutely bonkers. They're really, really good. If there was a little bit more focus behind it, because as they're doing Psychic Awakening, I feel they're actually getting better on having these sort of rules come together, then yeah, I would say they're in a strong place, but their relics and warlord traits are fantastic. And I think it's because they knew Chaos were in a bit of a bad way, but they didn't fix the fundamental thing, which was legion traits, which they've then added to Genestealer Cult, Astra, and what you call it? Who's the other one? Tau. They just went, we'll give them traits sort of things because they know that seems a bit interesting to people. In terms of the other one, I would say Tau got some really stellar ones. Their prototype weapons really revitalized a few units. I think we might see crisis suits again. Need to see how they work out, but they're looking really good. And Astra Militarum got a very interesting Legion trait sort of ability where they can essentially repair vehicles and also re-roll one dice of their random one. So they took like one of the best bits of the Katachan trait and then replaced the part that no one really cared about and you could take a better one, which is fine. You do lose stratagems if you do that. So yeah, that's quite good in that one. Another one, yeah, good point. Grey Knights, they actually did really well on it as well. Really helped bring them a bit more focus. Dark Angels, I was a bit like, meh. Dark Angels is a bit like Blood Angels to me, that they're pushing so much Primaris that I feel the focal points of Blood Angels and Dark Angels are a bit lost. I'd love to see an updated Sanguinary Guard, or I forget the Dark Angel equivalent.
Is that not the? Oh, that's terrible. I've forgotten the Inner Circle guys, the Terminators with the maces. Yeah, that's terrible. Deathwing, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think Grey Knights, they came out really well. I've not had a chance to play against them yet. I know you and David and a few other people are desperate to try them. But really, I think Astra, because of the format they did, they've got their tank aces, which is really good. They got some good stratagems. Tau, they got their additional prototype weapons, which are really good. And generally, I think they did pretty well. But Chaos, I mean, if they had better Legion traits, those relic stratagems and warlord traits are stellar. And I agree that some of the weakest ones are definitely Drukhari, Genestealer Cult, and Tyranids. I'm looking at Ron O'Tan there. That I fully agree with it. I don't know the Drukhari one very well, but Genestealer Cult I thought got robbed. Tyranids was interesting. I thought they were cool. Nothing that made them run away with anything, but definitely Genestealer Cult. When I read them, I was like, oh boy, that did not help at all.
So interesting points, and I'm glad you kind of broke that down and justified it, because again, it wasn't the sort of armies I thought you would have picked, but now that you said that, it does make a lot of sense. And I think from what I've been reading in the community, I think Tau and Astra have really came out quite on top with the latest one. From what the other channels have released content-wise about what's in that books. So I think for you Tau and Astra players out there, there's going to be some massive changes and some crazy shenanigans probably happening by the sound of things.
This sort of brings me to a point I sort of didn't mention earlier on. One thing I didn't like about this Psychic Awakening book, and maybe Astra and Tal people might like, is that there was a lot of ways to get reroll wounds, and I would say it's very important to get like reroll wounds because there's plenty of ways to get reroll hits, etc., or augments to hit. And I'm just really worried that if that general trend keeps happening, if it finds its way in Space Marines, all we'll be doing then is like re-rolling hits and wounds. So you go, oh, it doesn't matter the first thing I rolled. I'm re-rolling all the hits and I'm re-rolling all the wounds, and it seems to be escalating there, and I'm really worried about that. I think, quite frankly, we need to really reduce the amount of re-rolls to the point that I'd say that, see if anyone actually has reroll 1 ability, like aura of 6 inches, everything within 6 inches reroll 1s to hit. I'd say it should only be you get to choose 1 unit within that 6 inches.
Fair
Just because
point.
I'm getting scared of a massive escalation of rerolls.
Sort of like it would be like an inspire sort of situation.
Yes, but I'm just getting worried from what I saw in this one is there's a lot of here's how you'd get. I'm just waiting for reroll save aura. Oh my goodness, that would be if you got reroll save aura as well. Even if you even get saves in this edition anymore, that isn't involves.
Ross, what would it be? See if you had to change the reroll ones, but for Ash Militar, instead of like the morale system it used to be, was that the commissar would shoot one of the units and your unit be okay. Once we done it for the reroll ones.
That would be interesting. I mean, the commissars go through a lot of a mess at this edition because you had the conscript spam to begin with, which really helped Astra Militarum. Then they're like, right, we need to really sort this out. I just think, aura abilities are proving a little bit, problematic, and then we're seeing so many rerolls, and this latest Psychic Awakening saw a lot. It just worries me a wee bit.
Okay.
I may have tangented quite a wee bit there.
No. So just before we come to yourself, I'm going to quickly just interrupt this segment with a wee question here. So we do have a question, and from, obviously it had to come from Two Skill for Cool. With
about Custodes.
Yes. So I think best place is probably for you, Stuart, and Ross to answer this. And I'll come to you, Stuart, first, because you've had a chance to play Custodes very recently, and Ross, you are the main Custodes player. What do you think Custodes will get in Psychic Awakening is the real question. So yeah, guys, take it away. We'll go with you, Stuart, first. What do you think Psychic Awakening might give on top of what Custodes already have?
Honestly,
keep in mind,
I've never
you've only played one battle report with Custodes, so
yeah.
That's why I want to hear him use it first.
I don't really know, because like they are really good for what they are. Like they're like very high points units, but they can really do a lot. I've never actually thought of that at all. I just thought because Custodes to me are so new that they wouldn't really need a new Psychic Awakening added onto them. It's mainly everybody else to catch up. But I know Ross definitely has an answer for this one. But Ross, you probably best tell the answer, because I can't actually think.
No, you've only played them once, Stuart, so it's a bit of a tricky one for you. I think that they definitely, it's like Death Guard, and I'd argue Thousand Suns. Thousand Suns I thought did very poorly in Psychic Awakening. Thematically really cool, but overall didn't really help. What I think is that, like Death Guard, they may need they need different Legion traits. Like Custodes have I think they're called the Shadow Guard, which is the ones underneath Terra. And they work quite differently. So it's like, if you're going to go, rather than just being Custodes all get one solid buff, it's like the factions within them. I think the Shadow Keepers, there we go, specifically, yep. Thanks to Cool for School, I'm pretty sure that was them. That would be really cool. So you'll probably see these maybe different fixations on them. And that'd be really good. Give them like 3 of them or 4 of them. Because one Legion trait really doesn't do well. Except if you're Blood Angels or Dark Angels. They're doing quite well. And Space Wolves. Anyway. So, imagine we'd see that. What we'd see, and we've seen this with our Psychic Awakenings and other books, is that stratagems that target units to make them more useful. So you saw in the latest one, for the greater goods, there were certain ones that make XP8 crisis suits really good. It's one I think you get like a bunch of rerolls, of course. And I think that will be more mandatory for units like Wardens, because at the moment, people can't really find the use for Custodial Wardens. So I'm hoping we'll see more stratagems that will target the units and make them more relevant, which would be nice. They've got plenty of relics. They've got plenty of to do warlord traits. Well, they could do more warlord traits, but they've got plenty of relics. Maybe some of psychic defense would be good. Someone is saying add Sister Sansa's troop. I wouldn't like to see that. I know it would be interesting to have, but I'd like to stick to more Custodes. The weakness of Custodes is they need more variety, like Harlequins and like Admech before, but now they're getting it. It's simply they need more troops, and if it's going to be rules, they need a bit more of a faction choice, and they need psychic defense and stratagems that make all the units more relevant. And hopefully we'll see that.
What about an HQ choice? I mean, I don't know much about them, backstory-wise, but I like special characters or anything like that.
Well, they do have Trajan, which is fine. It'd be nice to probably see more I could go on about special characters for a whole podcast in itself. Like, I won't go into that too much.
No.
I would say the problem is with Custodians as well is that they're a very slow army trying to get across the battlefield. So maybe they need something that will help with their mobility more. Maybe one of their traits would be that they can advance and charge, or like the Necron one where they automatically advance 6 inches. Something like that would be really, really useful, because at the moment, moving 6 inches in this game and being an absolute beat stick unit like we talked about HQs, imagine a whole army of that moving 6 inches. It just does not sometimes work.
Yeah, it can be quite scary.
Plastic cock. That's the Forge World ones.
So guys,
which look amazing.
We'll move on. And Stuart, you know what? I think Ross actually has probably answered the topic of who do we think is the top of Psychic Awakening, pretty much in a nutshell. Stuart, I just want to quickly come to you. Do you have anything else you want to add? I've just got one final touch I want to add, but anything that you want to add first?
Not really. It would be again just talking about it, because I was a big Astra Militarum Talon player, and when Ross told me, it's like, yeah, Leman Russes can repair themselves. I was like, sorry, come again?
Oh, and even better as well. Like, that rule is insane. It's like the best repair rule I've seen in the game so far. It's crazy.
I mean, was it me and you, Pierce, when we used to play it, and I had like three Lehman Russ tanks, you're like, they need to be shot quickly, and it's now even more needed, because it's like, oh, you shoot this and you don't kill it, I will start repairing it. It's just I just think that's, because I know, Ross, you said as well, like there's like different way you can like customize like the units now and things like this a wee bit more, which is a lot interesting as well.
Yeah.
So guys, going to move on. Sorry, actually, before that, my final quick thought on Psychic Awakening. The armies that I feel, or the army I should say, that I feel has actually benefited the most, and Ross has pretty much already answered it.
Grey Knights.
No, not Grey Knights.
Because
I still think Grey Knights are missing some key elements to their force. Don't get me wrong, the new Grey Knight stuff is phenomenal. I really do like it. Like a whole new psychic table. I'm just looking at it and going, right, I'm just going to be Purify Mortal Wounds spamming for days. However, it's a one-trick pony. I wouldn't have liked to see new units like Primaris. I'm against adding Primaris, so I was glad they never done that. But what I think is missing is trying to give them more sort of unique Legion-esque rules. I know it's very hard to do that when it is pretty much a singular faction. You don't have sort of sub-factions within it. But finding a way to sort of, similar to the Thousand Sons Collegiate rules, would have been quite nice. We didn't get that, so you've still kind of stuck to your one-dimensional play with Grey Knights. But back to my answer. Personally, I think the army that's benefited the most out of all of the Psychic Awakenings was Tau Empire. And I had a chance to kind of basically stay on top of Ross's review and see what the community say. I think Tau got everything they needed to make Tau top. I think Tau was already quite close to the top, but the combinations you can now do with their brand new stratagems, which feed into the Forge World models in particular, I'll just say that name and then move on, the Yavakra Riptide. Now I'm going to move on and let's hope no one comments on it. There's ways now to make the Tau units incredibly terrifying. Absolutely
there's
terrifying.
One stratagem that makes that absolutely nuts, that Yavakra.
And the unit I felt that Tau needed an upgrade, because I actually was quite happy with all the other units. I thought they were all pretty much fine, did all their stuff well, was Crisis Suits.
Yep.
And everything I've seen in red makes them horrifically terrifying. And guess what? They're called a crisis unit. They're meant to jump in, deal with a crisis, and eliminate it. You never had that before. The new stratagems and the way to play the crisis teams, you can actually do that. You can jump in and eradicate something in one round. So for me, Tau has really got everything that Tau players wanted. I know Tau's quite a touchy subject. A lot of people don't like them. But I do think they're now a top tier army in particular, and could be top in my opinion, with the Psychic Awakening updates added to it. And for those who are going to be getting the book when it comes out, enjoy. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. So, moving on to the last point, guys. And this is probably the most one I'm excited about to talk about. And we hope that those who are listening are excited to talk about it too. Should Warhammer 40k have a new faction added? This is something that's been chucked around the communities for years. I can't even name the last one that was added. Probably Sisters of... Well, that was kind of a redo. Genestealer Cults was maybe the last one that was added. Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong.
I think it would probably be Death Guard as a faction.
You think so? Yeah, could be Death Guard. Yeah, probably Death Guard's a faction.
If you don't
brand
count
new or just updated?
No, just like added to like a whole new unit, a new faction's added into the mix.
I'm 90% sure it was Death Guard. It was like a brand
Yeah.
new. I think
Oh.
I think Custodes did have a Codex in 7th. If not technically Custodes, but I wouldn't count that. I think they had a Codex in 7th.
Yeah. So, guys, what I'm asking basically is, would you like to, first of all, because some people say no, it's oversaturated, or yes, it does need a new faction. Do we need a new faction, and what would you like to see from that faction? In particular, their sort of strength or speciality that they work towards. So, to take an example, Grey Knights, obviously their speciality is Psychic Phase. Ashmaltarum, it's your armour and guns. So, if you've had any thought on it, Stuart, we'll start with you. Is there anything you would like to see a new faction added, or do you feel it's quite fine and balanced as it is?
It's not balanced.
Yeah, I was mulling this over and I was like, factions do really need, and I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think so at the moment. I mean, I'm not as a veteran as you two are to this, but me personally, I think there's a lot to already go with. Like, I think there's as much right now that they're bringing out, like you're saying, like all these like supplement books to try and balance out or add more to the current factions that are there, to which some are getting nerfed, some are getting unbalanced, until they can make it like a fairly decent, like balanced, which is, I know that with everything, even games at all, like trying to make something perfectly balanced is nearly impossible. But at least within a certain amount of balance that you go, right, we've got that all down, maybe add a new faction into it. Because I think at the moment we've got enough as it is right now, and with all these new supplement books that are coming out, the rules are getting constantly tweaked constantly. So if you're adding a new faction in that could just throw everything, off the table and go, no, this will be the best faction, everyone will run it, ignore everything else. So
Okay.
I just couldn't really see myself, like, it would be it would be cool, like in the sense of buying, like, oh, this is a cool faction in that sense, but from like playing it, I would be like, nah, get everything else balanced first and then go for a new faction.
So, to kind of summarise, you're feeling that they need to get the rules down in balance first before they start introducing, basically a whole new set of rules.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I remember, was it when AdMech got introduced? Wow, just everyone went, use them. Oh, this is just destroying everything. That's it. Everyone's just, no one's going to play anything else. We're just going to, okay, again, that's like Games Workshop, because it's like, it's a flagship. Like, they brought it out. They're like, yes, we want everyone to buy this. It's going to be OP. But at the same time, it's like, that's what can happen. They want something that everyone will want to buy. So they'll make that strong enough that it will tip the scales in a sense. And I really think right now they don't need that. They just need to kind of balance everything else out.
That's all fair points. Absolutely fair points. And I can see from the chat, some people are wanting new armies introduced. Ronald's obviously saying squats or zotes. I think there's actually been a lot of rumours and topics in the community about that. Two School for Cool, I think this may be the first point I'm agreeing with you ever on the podcast. The Fallen would be cool. Well, I'm a massive fanboy for Cypher, so yeah, bring on the Fallen. I think it's a really hard faction to try and introduce, personally. But yeah, could be quite cool. But again, put in the chat, guys, your thoughts. And obviously I can see, Rich, you feel you should be looking after the armies that we actually have already. Kind of similar to Stuart. Clean up what we already have before we move on to something new. Ross, really keen to move on to yourself actually here. You kind of are more involved with the sort of reviewing the armies. You've got a more in-depth and a stronger knowledge of these armies than any of us in the channel do. What's your thoughts?
So, I mean, anytime you add a new force, yeah, it's cool and everything, but we've got to keep in mind that in the past couple of years, we had sort of the sub-faction editions, which was like Adeptus, we had AdMech, Adeptus Custodes, Harlequins, and Genesealer cults, which was these mini codexes that, I mean, like when AdMech first came out, I think when it was Scutari, they didn't even have an HQ choice, which was a bit awkward.
Yeah, that was weird.
Then they brought out Cult Mechanicus, and then they sort of put them into one for 8th edition because they realised it didn't quite work. They developed these sub-factions which were nice. They were cool, they were interesting, but AdMech have badly needed a bit more of an update, and we've seen them a lot now with their transport and additional tank. They're now getting a flyer with 3 variants, two fast attacks that have like 2 variances each. There's now a lot more variety in AdMech, and they now feel like a bit more of a complete force. So that's good in that one. But Custodes badly needs. They've been using Forge World to supplement Custodes because the codex itself is not complete. Same with Harlequins. Same arguably with Genestealer Cult. Though I actually quite like the Genestealer Cult range in a way. I think it's really, really interesting. So in part, I'd probably say no. They need to fulfill these units in themselves. They need to. I always said that they need to. Special characters, I honestly thought last year was going to be year special characters, and they did okay. We're seeing it continued. Again, Gazgo Thrak again updated. Fantastic. These iconic characters, Abaddon, Gazgo Thraka, Malnus Calgar, he didn't actually need an update, but fair enough, because he's had about 1 million since Gazgo Thraka. These iconic
Ross,
characters...
just before you continue, you've used up your Ultramarine quotes for the next 6 podcasts, so... I'm glad you got Marnius Calgar out your system there, so well done.
So the point is, I'm liking what they're doing with special characters, that they're trying to update the really, really old ones. Abaddon was a fantastic one. Gazgo, I'm sure, hopeful, is going to be fantastic. And that is the right direction, where they're making these iconic guys feel better on the field. But they've got armies back there that badly need to have a little bit of additions. Controversial idea in this one. I think they should just hurry up and finish off Primaris. Like, they've been teasing it for like 2.5 years now. Just get the range done already. It's boring me now. Just be done and let's move on.
There's no way they don't have all the range. They must have all the range planned and at least designed by now.
Oh, absolutely.
And I fully agree.
They're putting it out in drabs because it's easier for people economically. Like, if they released it all in one go, then it builds up hype, etc. Death Guard and Thousand Suns, for instance. Death Guard did get quite a lot of additions, albeit, it was like they missed a lot of things that they do need, which is a bit of range, a bit of variety there. Thousand Suns badly needs something. I would argue if you're going to fix Thousand Suns in a way, give them their Forge World units from 30k. That Psychic Dreadnought is one of the coolest models I've ever seen. I think it would be absolutely fantastic. It's all these sub factions that need to be updated. Have you seen the Psychic Dreadnought on Forge World for Thousand Suns?
Yeah, I have. Of course I have. It looks absolutely incredible.
Get that in the codex. I know they don't want to do that, but there's heavy rumours they're going to be doing that with Custodes to try and fulfill it, because they realise how much the Forge World Custodes really does help Custodes in general.
But so I think the same point lands. Thousand Suns need those Forge World stuff as well.
Absolutely, and I fully agree. They've also got the Automata in there as well, which would be really, really cool. I don't know how it would do lore-wise, but I think it'd be quick fixes. But generally, they need to update these armies a little bit more. To the point of, and I'm sorry, I'm going to finish up in a minute, because I know you've got 5 minutes to speak yours, and you're excited to speak about this, David. To the point of a new army, I would be interested in seeing a new army. I'm a Chaos fanboy, so I'd love to see... I want them to sort of finish the main Chaos God sort of idea. They did well with the Demon Primarchs. I'd love to see Emperor's Children and World Eaters. That'd be super, super cool. But to go in a different one, I would like to see either Adeptus Arbiters, which I think is like the cops of Imperial, like the Imperial forces.
An army of Judge Dreads.
Yeah, which I think would be cool, but Imperial really should not be a focus on anymore. Like, don't add another Imperial force. And it would also be very cool to see a new Xenos force. Just because, you've had Genestealer Cult, yeah, they came out, but there just needs to be something different. I don't know. I feel it'd just be very cool, but generally I'm not supportive of a new army.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of stuff to work on at the moment, and they're doing it just too slowly.
So, I'm going to take over from here, because I think both your points are completely valid, and I actually agree with them all. GW needs to, 1, clean up the rule set, make it more consistent and parallel across all the forces, and just goddamn finish Primaris, please. That's all we ask for. As on the channel, we've got some Primaris sort of forces for our White Scars and Imperial Fists, but they're definitely missing a lot of stuff. Let's not kid ourselves. However, though, I actually would love to see a new force added.
Okay.
But it looks like a general theme of our podcast is I seem to be quite different. But yeah, I would love a new force added, and I have 2 picks. I have 2 massive picks that I would, in a heartbeat, just hand over my money. So the first pick is going to be something that's currently not in existence. Well, it is in existence in one of the side games, which is the Men of Iron. So I would love to see an AI-driven force. So you've got mechanized forces, you've got psychic forces, demon forces. Necrons is not AI, let's not kid ourselves. I would love to see an AI-driven force. You've got it in the lore with the Men of Iron. Let's get an AI-driven force in 40k. They've teased it in Blackstone Fortress, where you can use one of the Men of Iron. How cool would that be? A totally AI-driven force. How fun would it be? You've got the hive mind of the Tyranid force, this biomass singular-minded force versus the mechanical AI singular-minded force. I just think it could be a really cool dynamic to add to the 40k universe. Don't get me wrong, I think all your points about the adding more rules is completely valid. It's just a fun thing. I'd love to see them do it. Do I ever think they will do it? Maybe in years to come, because they've sort of teased it. But an AI-driven force, I think, could be pretty cool. Your thoughts on that, guys? Yeah? No?
Yeah, AI would be... I never actually thought that. AI would be pretty cool, because that's like one of those controversial ones that the Imperium does not like.
Exactly. It could be a really cool dynamic.
Sure, you do know probably more lore-wise, like 30k, you do a lot more reading than me. And I know how much you talk about, like, AdMech and everything during 30k, and they're like, you know, AI is really bad. One of my own personal fears is AI, like, well, it takes one bad code and we're done. But that's another thing. Yeah, I think it'd be a cool force. It'd be interesting. I still stand by sort out the current armies. I'm going to stick by my guns in that one.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm totally with you, Ross. I'm just saying as an idea, like, once they get it balanced, if they go down, like, adding into the lore, like, AI, because it's going to be, who to be, was it Billy's Call? Because he's got an AI.
Belisarius Call.
Yes, he does.
Little Call.
Little Call, Twin Call.
Yeah, so he might be the one that accidentally do the whole Iron Man thing, just like, oh, let's just do that, and oh no, Ultron.
Yeah. And guys, I did say 2 armies though, didn't I? So there is one other.
I can tell what the other one is. I can tell.
I'm going to give you a chance to guess, Ross. I'm going to give you a chance to guess.
Is it something to do with your hate for Ultramarines or or Guilliman? Oh, am I wrong? Okay.
No.
Thousand Sons.
No.
Now, okay. This army is technically in existence in different formats, but it's not in its own dedicated force.
What?
Give me Legion of the Damned.
Oh, right. Okay.
Give me Legion of the Damned. And the reason I'm asking for Legion of the Damned as a dedicated Space Marine force, at the moment its current set is basically just a unit that all you can actually take. But it's a fan favourite. Everyone loves it, and I'm going to put it as an army that I would love to see. No, I would say the AI one is my number one, technically my number one pick. I'd love to see that actually added. And I'm just saying this out of pure love for Legion of the Damned because I get the bad feeling that GW is slowly phasing them out. If I'm being honest.
I really think they are.
Yeah.
I think they are kind of done.
And it's because of my love for their stories and the models and the look and the design. They're really damn cool models. But they've never really been touched with any love from GW. So I'm just chucking them in there as my second pick, but it's not the number one pick. I'd love to see, here's a far-fetched idea. Let's give Legion of the Damned some love and chuck them in as the army. I know they're a fan favourite to some people, but it could be fun. And I could just see Two Skill for Cool saying...
number one. Yeah, I've counted that. You've said that now 4 times.
My number one. My number one would be to write off an army entirely from GW, and that would be Ultramarines. But I'm going to cause too much upset in the community if I did that.
That'd be who, sorry? I missed that.
I would write off an army, and it'd be the Ultramarines. I'd just wipe them from existence.
That's only a sub-faction, doesn't wipe out an army.
Like, I believe the stories in 30k got it wrong when Ferrus Manus had his head chopped off. I believe what they meant to write there was actually Guilliman, but the person was given the wrong memo, so the story was written incorrectly. So whenever I read the book Fulgrim, I'm just thinking, that's obviously rebooted, meant to be there. But one day I'll get the proper draft I'm meant to have.
The greatest memo error was clearly, was it Abaddon and Lehman Russ?
Yes.
That was a bad memo pass.
The email went wrong.
Do you mean Horace and Lehman Russ? Yes. Horace and
Abaddon, yeah.
Anyway, guys, we've reached our time for today's episode. We started a couple of minutes later, so we are finishing a couple of minutes later. For those who've joined us on the podcast today, thank you very much. It's always fun for us to chat to you guys, have a bit of fun, share our thoughts. A replay will obviously be posted on the channel in a few hours. So if you're listening to this and you never got a chance to be on the live version, check our Facebook page for updates of when we do these sort of podcasts. We are post on Facebook when they're going to get posted on our YouTube channel, along with dates and times, GMT obviously for the time zone. But guys, thank you very much for watching. From me, from Ross, from Stuart, hope to see you all again, another one of our Tabletop Assault Battle Reports. Have a good evening, guys.